Coming up today, the floor leaders of Korea's three major parties meet for the first time since last week's general election turned the nation's political landscape on its head. President Park Geun-hye says she'll work with the new look National Assembly. 246 people are now confirmed dead, with hundreds more injured following the most powerful earthquake to hit Ecuador in decades. Plus, oil-rich nations at a summit in Qatar say they need more time before agreeing to a production freeze. Crude prices are already tumbling. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello, it's noon on Monday, the 18th of April. You're tuned in to our midday newscast here on Arirang TV. Thank you ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. We are going to start at the nation's top office this afternoon, and President Park Geun-hye held a meeting with her senior secretaries this morning, the first since her party's heavy defeat in last week's general election, which resulted in the loss of a parliamentary majority. Our presidential office correspondent Song Ji-sun is on the line from the top office. So, Ji-sun, there is a sense now, perhaps, that there will be a shift of approach towards the opposition parties.
That is correct, Mark. With the results of last Wednesday's general election, in which the Liberal Party garnered more seats than the ruling Unity Party, President Park says she humbly accepts the people's will and that the election functioned as a reminder of what the people want. Park pledged that her administration will put all its effort into driving the country's economic growth and development and completing her three-year economic division plan to improve the people's livelihood. She also expressed hope that the new parliament will work for that same goal and that her administration will closely cooperate with the newly elected lawmakers to do so. Citing unfavorable conditions at home and abroad for the Korean economy at the moment, Park stressed that efforts to strengthen Seoul's economic fundamentals must continue, with structural reforms and economic revitalization remaining the key, and added that job creation should be the top priority in any policy making. With North Korea is recently thought to be preparing for a fifth nuclear test, she wrapped up by calling for full defense readiness and said there should be no division of politics or ideology when it comes to inter-Korean matters and national security. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Ji-sun. Now, the floor leaders of Korea's three main political parties met this morning for the first time since last week's general election. The meeting was organized by National Assembly Speaker Jung Ui-hwa to discuss the possibility of convening the final session of the current assembly before the new National Assembly comes in at the end of next month. For more, we connect to our correspondent Park Ji-won, who's standing by for us at the National Assembly. So, Ji-won, do we know how these talks have gone?
Hello, Mark. The floor leaders and the National Assembly Speaker Chung started their meeting around an hour and a half ago. And like you mentioned, this is the first time for the floor leaders to be in the same room since last Wednesday's general election. Well, they have agreed to convene the April extraordinary session from Wednesday, April 20th. The 19th Assembly has only around 40 days left until the end of this term at the end of May. Speaking to the press this morning, all three floor leaders expressed their hope that lawmakers use the time productively, adding that they will try their best to pass as many non-contentious bills as possible. The floor leader of the ruling Unity Party, which lost its parliamentary majority in the election, said the Conservative Party once again wanted to express its heartfelt apology to the public, and he vowed to cooperate with the liberal opposition bloc. The floor leader of the main opposition Minju Party of Korea said the National Assembly needs to focus on passing bills aimed at improving the people's livelihoods. The centrist People's Party said it will do its best in coordinating talks among the parties to ensure they serve the public. Back to you, Mark.
Thank you, Ji-won, for that report. Now, in other news, South Korea's defense ministry has once again reiterated that North Korea could conduct a fifth nuclear test in the coming days or weeks. The ministry spokesperson said Monday that Pyongyang is capable of conducting an underground nuclear test at any given moment. He said the regime could conduct a full test or test a warhead without the nuclear material. Seoul says it's keeping close tabs on the north. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has already ordered his military to conduct another test. Experts believe North Korea might conduct a test before its Workers' Party Congress in early May, which will be the regime's first in over 3.5 decades. The number of people now confirmed to have died in the 7.8 magnitude earthquake in Ecuador stands at 246, with more than 2,500 injured. Rescue crews have been working around the clock to search for survivors. Kim Mo-gyun reports.
Aid is beginning to flow into the worst-hit areas after Saturday's earthquake, the most powerful to hit Ecuador in decades. The death toll has been steadily increasing, now approaching 250. The quake also left at least 2,500 people injured, destroying buildings and impacting cities even hundreds of kilometers away from its epicenter in the north of the country. One family from the municipality of Chimanga lost everything after the earthquake destroyed their home.
I was shopping, my daughter was home, and she was almost trapped, but her husband managed to get her out. Then the house came down, I found it like this. What am I going to do? Cry, that's all. There's nothing left on the street.
Ecuador's risk management agency says 3,500 police officers and 500 firefighters have been dispatched to several towns to help rescue efforts. Shelters have also been set up for those left homeless. The country's vice president, who took charge of recovery efforts as the president was returning from a trip to Italy, said Ecuador was working with other countries to help the survivors.
We are also coordinating international aid. I am very grateful for the solidarity and rapid response of friends. Venezuela, Mexico, Colombia, Peru, Spain, the European Union at this time, as well as others that have committed to provide specialized rescuers in working with the tools and technology and nutrition during this kind of a situation.
Local authorities say more than 130 aftershocks have been detected since Saturday's earthquake, mainly in the Pedernales area. Ecuador has declared a state of emergency in 6 of its provinces. Kim Mo-gyun, Arirang News.
Now in Japan, the death toll caused by a series of earthquakes on Kyushu Island has risen to at least 42. Local sources say at least 11 people are still missing, while some 2,000 people were injured, around 200 seriously. Thousands of buildings were damaged in the quakes, and 180,000 people have been spending a third night in temporary shelters, including cars and tents. More than 60,000 homes remain without electricity, and 300,000 have no water. A 7.3 magnitude earthquake struck near the city of Kumamoto a day after a 6.4 magnitude quake hit the city on Thursday. Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says the number of troops helping in the rescue effort has risen to 25,000, and the US military is going to provide air transportation. So 4 powerful earthquakes struck different parts of the world last week: Japan, Ecuador and Tonga. And while they're all thousands of kilometers apart, one thing connects them: the Ring of Fire. Lee Ji-won reports.
Japan is facing the daunting task of cleaning up after 2 powerful earthquakes hit its southern island of Kyushu in little more than 24 hours late last week. Roughly a day later, a 7.8 magnitude quake struck Ecuador. And on Sunday, Tonga, an island state in the southern Pacific Ocean, was hit with a 6.1 magnitude earthquake. All the affected places are within the so-called Ring of Fire, an area where frequent volcanic eruptions and earthquakes occur in the Pacific Ocean. About 90% of earthquakes occur in this region, and about 75% of active volcanoes are located along the Ring of Fire. The Ring of Fire is a result of the movement and collision of tectonic plates that make up the Earth's crust. And at a subduction zone where the heavier plate slips under the lighter plate, trenches are formed, sometimes developing into volcanoes. When the crust underground suddenly breaks due to pressure, earthquakes are caused. And seeing how 4 earthquakes have hit different parts of the world in the past few days, experts are concerned an even stronger earthquake may be on the way. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
Now, the world's biggest oil-exporting states have failed to agree to freeze production. Saudi Arabia wants a cap to try and boost prices, but Iran, which pulled out of the meeting last minute, will not agree to that. The group's failure to strike a deal in Qatar sent oil prices nosediving again. Kim Min-ji has the details.
No agreement. Officials from 18 oil-exporting nations comprised of both OPEC and non-OPEC members met in Qatar in the hope of inking a deal that would put a ceiling on oil production at January levels. Casting a cloud over the outcome, Iran refused to join the talks at the last minute. Tehran maintains that it would boost production to levels seen post-sanctions. Adding to woes, Saudi Arabia, the world's largest oil exporter, was only willing to freeze output if all major producers agreed to do so, including Iran. Qatar's oil minister said the group needed more time before an agreement could be reached.
The meeting concluded that we all need time for further consultation from now till June meeting in OPEC. All participating countries will consult among themselves.
On the news, West Texas Intermediate shed more than 6%, falling below $40 a barrel at one point in trading. Global oil prices have plunged over 70% since mid-2014, driven by near-record production from OPEC and other producers. But many analysts are on the same page that the move to freeze, not cut production will have little impact.
It doesn't mean much because the people involved are talking about freezing their production level at an already high rates into a market that is still oversupplied.
Experts say the failure to reach a deal could prevent prices rising anytime soon, with the chance of market balancing out also receding. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now, Brazil's Congress has taken a giant step towards removing President Dilma Rousseff from office. After more than 5 hours of voting, Rousseff's ruler's party conceded defeat. 342 of the 513 members of the Chamber of Deputies voted in favour of impeachment, the two-thirds necessary for the process to continue. The first female president of Brazil has been accused of illegally using money from state-owned banks to conceal budgetary deficits in order to win re-election in 2014. If the impeachment trial goes on and is approved by the Senate, Rousseff must step down for 180 days to defend herself against the accusations. In the case of a Senate trial, a two-thirds majority must vote to convict Rousseff for her to be ousted. Otherwise, she will return to office. Korea's central bank will announce its new growth outlook for this year on Tuesday. The bank's governor has already hinted that the forecast could be cut to the 2% range. But what effect will such a downgrade have on the Bank of Korea's interest rate policy? Hwang Jie tells us more.
With sluggish exports prompted by the slowing Chinese economy as well as slumbering domestic demand, it's now almost certain that growth in Korea will be in the 2% range this year. Ahead of this month's monetary policy meeting on Tuesday, when the central bank will also release its new growth outlook, the Bank of Korea Governor Lee Ju-yeol hinted at the possibility of a growth rate below 3% this year. The central bank's current growth forecast stands at 3%, and if the BOK actually cuts its earlier projection, it's not going to be alone. Most local institutions, as well as other global investment banks, expect Korea to fall short of expansion in the 3% range. With that, market expectations for more easing to prop up growth remain, but analysts say a rate cut is unlikely this month.
Economic indicators in February, as well as export figures for March, have improved, prompting the central bank to keep an eye on the current situation before maneuvering the interest rate.
4 of the central bank's monetary policy board members are scheduled to be replaced following the monetary policy meeting this month, another issue that market watchers say will make it hard for the BOK to cut the key rate. They say it's unlikely incumbent members will take any such actions, as it will leave fewer options for their successors. During his trip to Washington for the G20 financial leaders meeting on Friday, the top central banker also said that the BOK is carefully managing its monetary policy, as it could be dangerous to change the key rate with the country currently facing various external uncertainties. Hwang Jie, Arirang News.
Now, Korea's listed firms have increased their final dividend payments over the past 3 years to enhance their share value. According to the Korea Exchange on Monday, 492 of 737 listed firms will pay a combined $16.6 billion in final dividends to shareholders by the end of April. The government and foreign investors have been urging Korean companies to up their dividend payments. Payouts by the companies listed on the benchmark Kospi soared 62% in the 2013 to 2015 period. Now, over 72,000 applicants, the highest ever, signed up to take the TOPIK, or the Test of Proficiency in Korean, over the past weekend. Now, the number of people taking the TOPIK has been on the steady rise since the exam was first introduced in 1997. The Korean government increased the frequency of this exam last year from 1 to 6 times a year, and a total of 71 countries now offer this test, a huge increase from 4 in its inaugural year. Korea's education ministry says the international Hallyu trend, or the Korean wave, is the main reason for more people becoming interested in Korea and its language. Well, that's all we have for now on this Monday lunchtime here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom. Thank you as always for watching our newscasts, and we'll be back throughout the day with more news updates. So until then, goodbye.